Good morning, South Bend. You're listening to WLA Radio 92.5 on the FM band, and this is your morning mashup. If you're just tuning in, I am, as always, your most benevolent host, the Reverend Will the Thrill, preaching a gospel of peace, love, and the most fulsome variety of music on the air. That's right, folks. Other stations may claim to have a wide variety of music, but none of them have the guts to be this fulsome. How fulsome is our variety, you ask? Well, just to give you an idea, you just heard new music from Florence and the Machine in the title track from their new album, How Big, How Blue, How Beautiful. We also played some old music, Rudy Valley's 1930 hit, Betty Coed, and we started this hour with, I guess you'd call it some middle-aged music, with What a Fool Believes by the Doobie Brothers, that one off the request line for Victoria. Coming up, we'll be playing some Gene Autry, Morphine, Maria Callas, and the one and only Bill Withers. If there's something you'd like to hear, no matter how out there it might be, by all means, give us a call at 1-800-448-4373, and I'll see what we can play for you. That number, once again, is 1-800-448-4373. This hour of Music and Me is brought to you, as always, by our dear friends at Becky's House of Spaghetti and Pancakes, located on Kircher Road, just across from the NIPSCO plant, providing you with all of your comfort food needs, from homemade French toast to macaroni and cheese, just like Grandma used to make. They even provide takeout, delivery, and catering services. You can give them a call at 472-6362 to help plan your special event, or if you just want to pick up some dinner on the way home from work. I hear their egg in a basket is, and I quote, to die for. So anyway, I was thinking about this. There's a church down the road from where I live, one of those with the type of sign that they can change to read, something inspirational. Until the other day, the sign read, "Life is fragile, handle with prayer." Clever, don't you think? Before that, it read, "God answers knee mail." You get the idea. I think right now it says fall preschool registration, which isn't wholly inspirational, but I digress. A couple of years ago, while I drove past it, I noticed that it read, "Become an organ donor. Give your heart to Jesus." That's a nice sentiment for a church, but, and I never quite had the heart to point this out to them, they misspelled the word donor. I always wanted to go in and correct that for them, or at least make a note of it, but I never could bring myself to do it. In the 2002 film Sweet Home Alabama, and this is going to sound like a digression, but believe me, it all ties together, there was a sign on the wall at the local bar that reads, "No dancing on tables with spurs." This has often puzzled me. I can't decide if they mean you're not allowed to dance on the table while wearing spurs, or if you're not allowed to dance on tables that are wearing spurs themselves. They never quite clarify that. But yes, dear friends, I am a bit of a grammar nerd. I pay attention to proper spelling, punctuation, word usage. I admit I'm not perfect. Every so often I'll end a sentence in a preposition. Occasionally I'll leave a participle dangling. I always find it bothersome when I do. I fancy myself a writer and a wordsmith. Some of you can vouch for that. I revel in the English language, and I'm drawn to other writers and wordsmiths like George Carlin and Aaron Sorkin, Joss Whedon, and more recently Nick Offerman, who clearly share that love of language with me. The older I get, the more I find myself annoyed when watching films or television programs in which a character misuses certain words, and I'm always surprised and delighted when another character actually corrects improper grammar. Incorrect usage of who and whom has become something over which I tend to obsess in recent years. Unfortunately, in this day and age, social media have become safe havens for people who have only minor grasp of their native tongue. I can't begin to tell you how incredibly frustrating it is to know that I spent all that time in multiple English classes from practically the moment I could read, learning how to capitalize properly, when and when not to use commas, how to spell, only to see that apparently no one else was paying attention. What's worse, it seems no one seems to care. In spite of my frustration, I have not gone so far as to become one of those vigilante grammarians who, with a can of spray paint, will correct improper grammar on billboards. It's not really vandalism if they're correcting it, right? And I've not gone so far as to correct misspellings and bad grammar that I find online, particularly among my friends, because I don't want to be, well, a jerk or pedantic about it. In many cases, I figure it's just an out-of-place keystroke. The writer was probably typing too fast and hit a key too soon, causing a misspelling. The right letters are there, they're just in the wrong order, and I'm usually a little more forgiving in these cases, provided they're kept to a minimum. After all, they happen to the best of us. In fact, the only person whom I give any grief is my mother, if for no other reason a woman never could spell worth a damn. The problem with being a grammar nerd is that it sometimes detracts from the enjoyment of reading, along with watching TV and movies. I recently read Kirk Honeycutt's book, John Hughes, A Life in Film. It was a relatively fascinating look at the man who redefined the genre of teen films. Unfortunately, the thing was riddled with typos that I can't believe made it past anyone who would dare call him or herself a proofreader. And if you're like me and you're a film buff who is irritated by sloppy writing, I highly recommend that you read the Wes Anderson collection by Matt Zoller Seitz instead. Since I clearly don't have the nerve to correct the errant online grammar of others because A, again, I don't want to be a pedantic jerk, and B, I'm sure someone would eventually take a swing at me for it. All I can do is try to set a good example by continuing to use English as correctly as I possibly can. I'll continue to proofread my texts and use proper spelling and punctuation and capitalization in them as well, along with all of my blog posts and emails. I will continue to refuse to use expressions like OMG, LOL, LMFAO, unless, of course, I'm referring to the musical group. As I once told my sister after she used OMG in an email, if your age has more than one digit and the first digit has a value higher than 1, you're not allowed to express yourself using initials. I might just use WTF just to be polite, but frankly I wouldn't count on it, just because I hate to be inconsistent, if nothing else. As far as I'm concerned, it's only acceptable to use initials when referring to an organization or government agency. Examples include FBI, TSA, HSUS, UPS, USPS, USA. Incidentally, please, by all means, if you find I've made an error in one of my emails or Facebook or blog posts, or if you follow me on Twitter and find an error in one of my tweets, please let me know. I would hate to look down on someone else for doing something that I have unwittingly done myself. As I said, I'm not perfect. So with that in mind, let's get back to some tunes, shall we? As many of you will remember, you may even will remember well. One of the biggest hits of 2013 was a song called Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke featuring T.I. and Pharrell Williams. The song was written by the three of them, and now legally we can say Marvin Gaye as well. Last year's song Parodist Extraordinaire the Great, Weird Al Yankovic put his own lyrics to it, and in it he expressed what I've been trying to express here, only he did it much better. So from his #1 chart-topping album, Mandatory Fun, and no, I'm not making that statistic up, please enjoy Word Crimes on 92.5 WLA.